Hello everyone, welcome back. All right, it's that time once again where we're going to take a look at the full moon above. This time it's in Aries, September 29th, 2023. Going to take a look at the stars above and the tarot below to see what this full moon in Aries has in store for us. So go ahead and grab your favorite beverage and let's get started. So first and foremost, we have the sun, which is in Libra at 6 degrees, and it is opposing the moon in Aries at 6 degrees. So we have Libra, the sun sign, which is our identity and what it is that we are usually, is informing our actions, is very much concerned about teamwork, collaboration, the greater good, diplomacy. And then we have our emotional side, which is influenced by Aries, which is more concerned with the sovereign self. So I really think that there's going to be a lot of folks who are going to find that this full moon is a real mixed bag. I think that there's going to be folks who are going to absolutely love this full moon, and there's going to be folks who really don't love this full moon. But either way, we will probably, once we get through this, the energy of this full moon, we're probably going to see that we have some clarity on where the rights of me as an individual end and begin, and where the rights of others, the community, my friends, my family, people who have expectations or have commitments or responsibilities to, where do their rights end and begin? And I'd like to just kind of take a moment to go back to the new moon that came right before this. And the new moon, the full moons, they're always connected. So you have the new moon, which is about bringing in energy. It's about new beginnings, gestation, and then full moons are about expression, letting go, shedding. And the new moon, if you take a look at that video, you'll see that we really talked about analyzing and taking stock. And I think that that new moon is going, and the information that we gathered from that full moon, the clarity that we may have received in these 2 weeks between the new moon and the full moon, I think that that information is going to very much play a part in how we navigate these waters as we redefine boundaries, as we get really clear on what our own passions are, and also perhaps have some perspective on where we might be shoulding on ourselves. I have this saying that I think is funny, is don't should on yourself or anyone else. It's not a good look and it's not polite. But it's true though, because so many times we will either gaslight ourselves out of our desires, saying like, no, that's not really what I want, or we will just deny them that like, no, I can't have that, because of a preconceived notion of how that might interfere with how others perceive us, or how our desires might affect another person. And there are cases in which we do have to have self-sacrifice for the greater good, but it doesn't have to be our MO. And that's what I think this full moon is here to teach us, is how to balance between the individual and the community. So let's take a look at some other things that are going on around this full moon, besides just the sun and the moon. I mean, that by itself is a big deal, but there's also a grand trine that is a big deal too in this full moon. And the grand trine is between Mercury, that's in Virgo, and Mercury rules the sign of Virgo, so it's like super happy in that sign. And then we have Pluto, that's in Capricorn, and that's at 27 degrees. And then we have Uranus and Jupiter, which are actually conjunct in Taurus, that are also part of this grand trine. So we have Mercury, which is the planet of communication, intellect. It's how we, it affects like how we understand or how we process information. And then we have Pluto in Capricorn, and Pluto is about death and rebirth, and Capricorn is about goals, dreams, aspirations, and the doingness that is required to make those dreams and aspirations a reality. And then we have Uranus, which is about change, revolution, And Jupiter can sprinkle in a little bit of luck once in a while, and it also expands anything it touches. So we have Taurus and Capricorn energy in this grand trine, which is very earth-based. So, and then we have two energies, Pluto and Uranus, in these earthy signs that are associated with initiating change. So the decisions that you make and the insight that you're having has the potential to really potently be distilled down into creating tangible change in your everyday life. So changes in family, changes in home, changes in I think even our identity, how we understand ourselves, which always has a ripple effect to change our life. Changes in our health, changes in where we live, our job, careers, our relationship with money. All of these things have the potential to be revamped with this full moon. And then we have Mercury in Virgo, which I think is really helpful in helping us have a very clear and concise understanding of how all of these parts, how they all fit together. And perhaps maybe even having some new awareness around how our desires don't always necessarily have to be in conflict. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing, where I either get to have everything I want, or I don't really, or I'm always having to give up everything that I want and need for all of the commitments and all the responsibilities and for the greater good of other people. My question in this that's coming to me to ask is, how often do you actually ask for what you want? How often do you ask other people to show up for you? And is it possible that in honoring our own desires and our own passion, and in asking for the collaboration and the support of others, that we might actually be contributing to the greater good as we allow other people the permission to support and to show up for us, perhaps the same way that we typically are showing up for them. So if you're a person that struggles asking for help, or feels that even on a subtle level that perhaps your needs are an inconvenience, this is a very, very healing full moon. This is also a great full moon for goals and to revamp your career, to revamp how you want to show up in the world. Any kind of something of that nature, like that, this is a really good full moon. Where it might be a little challenging is with our interpersonal relationships. And, just as I just said that, how often do we ask for what it is that we need and what it is that we want? There is a possibility that we may have clarity on relationships that are less than reciprocal. We might have some codependent tendencies that just come right up, and we see how we are becoming responsible for other people's emotions when that's obviously not healthy. So that's the challenging piece, is that is possible that with how we have clarity on how our relationships are in balance, it's going to be, there might be some tough conversations that might have to be had, especially with Mercury and Virgo, because you're not going to want to placate. There'll be very little room for any BS. Telling people just what they want to hear to create an illusion of peace, like that kind of energy really doesn't have much space in this alignment. And let's take a look at else. So we also have a Grand Cross, and the Grand Cross is between Black Moon Lilith, Sagittarius rising, Saturn in Pisces, and the Descendant in Gemini. So this is where we might feel the rub. And so, I've already covered a lot of like what the challenges will be, and the Grand Cross definitely speaks to this, where we might feel like guilt from putting ourselves first, or we might feel it being very difficult to call out how there might be a lack of reciprocation, or so there's just this recalibrating of boundaries on all levels that's happening. And the thing too with that Grand Cross is that we might also start being hyper focused on our own emotions. So Libra, all signs have light and dark sides. Libra's light side is collaboration, diplomacy, teamwork. They're also very good at, usually they're thought of as being charismatic. They are artistic and loves beauty. The shadow side of Libra is, placation. They can sometimes maybe just tell people what they want to hear in order to create an illusion of peace. Especially if low self-esteem is an issue or lack of confidence, there may be like a kind of a squishy sense of self. And then Aries, on the other hand, is that pioneering spirit, sovereign self, confident. And then on the flip side, it can be sometimes self-absorbed and childish. So we have these two extremes here that are playing. And the other thing that's coming to me is that some inner child work may be on the table for some folks, because Aries is a really good sign to be tapping into when we're talking about inner child work, because it is the first sign in the zodiac. It is very much associated with our very basic primal needs, as well as our basic emotional needs. So with all that being said, I'm sorry, my nose is really itching. Let's take a look and see what the tarot has to say. So join me in setting the intention that whatever part of the messages that are coming through in the tarot, that the messages that are really pertinent to you and the situations that you're navigating, that you'll know exactly that part of the message, that one's for me. And join me in setting the intention on asking our divine highest selves, what do we need to know or do at this time to make the most of this Aries full moon, September 29th, 2023. Okay. All right, so it is giving us a bit of a heads up here. We have the Queen of Swords, and I think that this is Mercury and Virgo, my friends. We have the Queen of Swords, which is about like that no BS kind of communication. Does not necessarily mean that it needs to be harsh or aggressive, just really concise and to the point. The Queen of Swords is right side up, so this is an indication that it's very clear communication. If it's upside down, it means that that communication might be overly harsh. So don't be afraid to speak your truth. Use a little bit of that Libra diplomacy to make the information more digestible. So for example, if you are needing to get the collaboration of someone, you could approach it by asking more questions and then wrapping in what they need into perhaps maybe there's some mutual benefit, like maybe there's an opportunity for everybody to, high tide lifts all ships. There can also be, instead of making you statements, making statements about ourselves. That keeps us out of the area of projection. There's a lot of communication techniques out there that don't necessarily muddy what it is that you're trying to say, but it actually keeps it very concise, very clear, and a bit more pragmatic, so that we don't get lost in the emotions of the information, but the emotions are still honored. So it may be worthwhile to research those kind of communication techniques, especially if you find that you're gonna need to, that it will be in your best and highest good to have a difficult conversation with someone. And it probably will bring up some disharmony. So, you know, this full moon is about letting go, and it's about, you know, dredging up how our interpersonal communications and how our interpersonal relationships, how some of those imbalances may actually be holding us back. And perhaps even as they hold us back, even if we're not completely aware of it right now, we may then have some aha moments on how it's actually not even good for the community. Typically, a lot of times when one person is in kind of a martyr type of role, or is chronically having to give up what is it they want, there's it not always, but a lot of times folks who are in the martyr role don't realize like how much better the whole community could be if there was engagement and reciprocation all around, because accountability is really empowering for everybody, really, even if certain people don't like being held accountable. And then this disharmony will very much, here's the Six of Cups. And this again is about the inner child. I mean, this card is about childlike wonder. It's about play. It's about the sense of well-being and safety. And when it's reversed, it's saying that the disharmony that we see is really related to having not enough joy. I mean, there it is. That's the bottom line. This full moon is giving us awareness on all of the ways in which we may either be limited externally, or we might be limiting ourselves, that is actually squeezing the joy out of life, or limiting the amount of joy that is our birthright. Joy is a birthright, just like air, water, food. Like joy is food for the soul. So if life is feeling very dry, if your soul is feeling hungry, then chances are that there is a call to bring back your own personal power, and then reflect using this Mercury and Virgo energy with all of this transformational energy that Pluto, Uranus, and Jupiter have with this grand trine, and start reassessing that Mercury and Virgo. That's what's going to help us with this. Reassessing, how might I revamp the way that I relate and my communication style so that my needs are more seen and more honored, because we teach people how to treat us, and which relationships have space for me, and are there relationships, codependent relationships, that are basically just keeping me in a toxic loop where my needs are not actually being met or made a priority. So yeah, this is there's going to be, the thing that I want to leave you guys with is that there's no perfect answer for these kind of questions. There is just answers that perfectly work for you. And with this kind of navigation, we will probably make mistakes, and that's okay. You know, life is messy, and it's okay for us, for these folks who are dancing, when it's upside down, I always see as like these two are learning how to dance together. That the disharmony is more about like, is very similar to like what it's like to learn how to dance. So we're learning how to dance, and it's okay if we accidentally step on each other's toes a little bit, as long as we're being respectful of the other person's space, and we're like, oh, sorry, let's renegotiate this. How can we create a calibration? How can we create synchronicity and a rhythm that, for the most part, works for all? So it's big energy, it's transformational energy, and you know, some of us, it's not going to be necessarily comfortable, but I have a feeling that, especially when we get into October, and there's so much that's happening in the stars in October, that we are going to be better for it. So Thank you all so much for joining me here. I look back to seeing you here in a couple weeks where we're going to take a look at this next new moon.